Hey, Texas real estate investors. If you invest or live in the Lone Star State, you all know we live in the greatest state in the entire union. I don't care what your politics are, I don't care who you vote, Democrat or Republican. If you're a real estate investor, your blood is green. All right. Yes, it's red with a tint of green of looking for cash flow or profits. And Texas is still the best place to buy, own, and invest. Okay. In our previous episode, we talked about the 20 most frequently asked questions by AI or to Google's Gemini. I went one step further. Make sure you go out and listen to that episode. But I asked, what are the biggest questions, the 20 most questions asked about Texas real estate or investing in Texas real estate? And I thought I'd share those results with you guys because it was some good stuff. I was actually pretty surprised about it. And so let's dive in and take a look at those 20 questions. All right. So, in Texas, real estate investing is unique due to its lack of state income tax, its aggressive property tax system, and its specific contract for deed laws in some cases. I also say it's important based on the foreclosures. The eviction rates are all faster here in the state of Texas. Okay, so let's dive into these 20 questions and go from there. Okay, number one question: why are Texas property taxes so high when compared to other states? Well, since there is no state income tax, local governments rely heavily on property taxes to fund schools and services. You can expect to pay between 2 and 3.5% of the property's value annually on the property taxes. So if you vote for school taxes, new schools, stuff like that, guess what? Your property taxes are going to go up. Okay. So it's important what you vote on, especially when it comes here to Texas school districts and bonds, stuff like that will drive your property taxes up. Number two, can I get a homestead exemption on my investment property? No, you cannot. In Texas, you can only claim a homestead exemption on your primary residence. Investors, you're going to pay the full ad valorem tax rate. Okay. Just as is what it is. Okay. What is a contract for deed and is it safe? Now, a contract for deed is kind of like a rent to own aspect of things in Texas. Okay. Um, Basically, if I'm going to sell you a property, I'm going to do it on a contract for deed. The actual deed is going to stay in my name until you pay off that property, until you pay off that note. Okay. So you're not paying rent, you're paying like a mortgage payment, but it's treated as a tenant basis. Okay. And strict regulations protect buyers. Many investors avoid them because a single missed payment can lead to a complex legal battle. That's right. You missed a payment, technically you start evicting. So you don't see a lot of contract for deeds in Texas. You see owner financing. Texas is the fastest state to foreclose on anyway. So most people would rather just put you in a mortgage and then go through the foreclosure route of that aspect of things versus the eviction. So if once you're 90 days in default and haven't paid for 3 months, then they start the foreclosure process. You're not going to usually get a contract. You're going to be a tenant or you're going to be a borrower. Lease options, kind of similar like a lease to own, those are illegal especially to folks on a primary residence level beyond 180 days. Now, if you're going to sell to an investor or sell to an LLC, yes, you can do a contract for deed or lease option when it's to an LLC, but not when it's going to be somebody's primary homestead at some point. Okay. Um, do I need an LLC for my Texas rentals? And I would say yes, you do. Most Texas investors use an LLC to protect personal assets. Texas is also one of the few states that offers a series LLC, which allows you to separate multiple properties in different cells under one umbrella. So, like it would be, yeah, like I have multiple LLC, like I have Inverse Asset Fund. It was just a regular, normal LLC. Okay, I can hold properties in that. But what a lot of investors in Texas like the series LLC. So you don't have to go out and buy 30 new LLCs. You buy one series LLC, maybe a little bit more, about $1,500, I think is what I paid. So it's going to be like Inverse Asset Fund Series A, Inverse Asset Fund Series B, Inverse Asset Fund Series C. You can have as many series that kind of follow up to the main LLC. And that's probably good if you have a portfolio of property notes, put them in a different LLC as long as it's here locally. Okay. Some people will say they'll put things in land trusts instead of using a LLC. You can do that as well. What usually ends up happening though, if you have to refinance or other things, you may have to take the property out of the trust. Now, investors will often use like land trusts if they're doing subject to deals, when they're taking over a mortgage payment and things like that. So, talk with a good real estate attorney about how to structure and what entity you need to use for your specific deals. I use notes. I buy in about 20 different states, so I have a variety of different LLCs. Now, how do I protest? His next question is, how do I protest my property taxes? Every year in May, Texas owners can protest their appraised value at the county appraisal district or CAD. Most investors hire a professional firm to do this automatically. Um, There's no guarantee that your taxes are going to go down. If you bring in comps, I know both people like my buddy Boyd, who we've had on one of our podcasts before. He goes out, he pull comps every year, and he goes and stands in line and waits to protest it. On other sides, we also will hire a professional every year to go out and they protest it. I can't remember what the fee is, but they often help us get knocked down. It's usually never going to be what you'd like it to be. It's usually not going to be what comps are in the real in the neighborhood. Remember, if they're going to drop your tax value down to reduce taxes, they're not going to go above and beyond. But somewhere in the middle, getting any type of relief is one of the most important things you can do. So make sure you do this every year. Okay. Here's a second series of questions, market and location questions. Number 6 question is, are Austin and Dallas still good for beginners? It's kind of like I said earlier. Those metros are higher priced. Yes, if you're Metro Dallas, Metro Austin, of course, would be higher priced. Many 2026 beginners are moving towards secondary markets like Killeen, Temple, or New Braunfels for better entry prices. And I'm going to say New Braunfels, I'm sorry, but Kamal County, where New Braunfels at, Hayes County, where San Marcos at. Obviously, what do we have in that area? We have Texas State University, Texas Lutheran, out in Seguin, and there's another one I'm probably missing as well too. Those are growing universities. So yeah, Killeen Temple, we see that for folks in Texas, Dallas, Waco. People that want to come down to Dallas, San Antonio, people are moving down in the outskirts of San Antonio and stuff like that, or Corpus Christi as well. I think those tertiary outsider markets are probably a little bit of a place to start, but it all depends on what niche you're going after. Okay. I think starting off, dive into the residential side, make your money, learn ins and outs of that before you dive in the commercial side. Okay. Here's another question that comes to location. Is it better to invest in the Texas Triangle? The Texas Triangle is a region between DFW, Houston, and San Antonio. It contains 70% of the state's population. It's generally considered the safest bet for long-term demand. It is. If you can find land in the Texas Triangle, it's going to do you very well. All right. So keep that in mind. Um, that's where 70% of the population, that Texas Triangle, ladies and gentlemen. So if you can find something there, that makes sense. But that doesn't mean Corpus Christi, doesn't mean El Paso is bad. You just got to know where you're at and what you're looking at. Okay. What about foundation issues in Texas? Because of the expansive clay soil, foundation problems are extremely common. Investors always ask, has the foundation been leveled and is there a transferable warranty? So yes, this is something you always ask, but here's the thing. We have a lot of clay that grows and shrinks with the heat and rain and stuff like that, but we also have a lot in limestone. So we don't see as many clay issues in, kind of like everything west of 35. East of 35, you might see some of it, but the way things are built these days, just keep that in mind. You have more foundation issues probably on older properties and how things are being built these days. Okay. And a foundation issue isn't a killer deal, or isn't going to kill a deal like it used to be. People are used to it. There are foundation repair companies that are pretty good to use, and one of the great things you can go out there and get them to give you a bid. Okay. How does right to redeem work in Texas tax foreclosures? Okay. This is Texas tax foreclosures. Okay. So the sheriff's sales is if a first Tuesday of the month, your property is going to go to foreclosure based on the taxes, not the mortgage, but the taxes. If you buy a property at the tax sale, the previous owner has 6 months on a non-homestead or 2 years on a homestead or ag exemption to buy it back with you by paying a 25% penalty right off the bat. I don't care if it's a month later or 6 months later, you get it. There's a 25% penalty they've got to pay you back. So if it goes to tax sale and you pay 100 grand on the taxes, the tax auction, guess what? You're getting 125,000 back. Like I said, 6 months on a non-homestead, or it's 2 years on a homestead or ag exemption. Now, if it's a tax sale, now if you're just buying the property at a normal foreclosure auction, there is no redemption period. Okay, but tax sale there is that 6 month to 2 year redemption period. The number 10 question is I found kind of comical. How do Texas summers affect my expenses? Scorching heat means higher HVAC maintenance and higher electricity bills if utilities are included. Investors often ask about energy efficient upgrades to attract tenants. Okay. Now, this is what you have to look at. That means like energy efficient means newer HVAC stuff, double pane windows, new insulation. What kind of clean energy can you use? There's all sorts of different things. In Austin, also was like the first city that had a community. It was completely like a 13 point or maybe 40 point green energy aspect of things. I think some of the cost for some of the stuff to put that in it really far exceeds what you might save on a month. There's also talk about solar power. I'm not a big fan of solar. just because it will violate the warranty on your roof most of the time, and you don't want to do that, especially because your roofs are going to be important. So talk with your realtor, find out what's going on with that. How old is the property? When were the units? Dude, always good to have a good service HVAC service technician to come out and view. They've saved my ass on a lot of deals where we thought we'd have to replace the HVAC. They were able to come and put it together, and it got us through inspection and stuff like that. Okay. Number 11, the math, the strategy was the 1% rule, and does it still apply in Texas? The 1% rule suggests a property should rent for 1% of its purchase price. In 2026, Texas, this is hard to find. Most investors now target at zero point 0.7 to zero point 0.8. Very, very difficult. When you start going down, well, I'm going to expect to get 0.7% of what the property purchased for, means properties get more expensive. You may want to move to a market that's at a better ratio. I think sticking to that 1%, preferably if you can find something at 1.25 or 1.5, that's even better for you. All right. There's probably a little bit of distress. You may have to put a little bit of work into it, but I don't like going below that one. I don't think anybody should do that. If you're doing that, you're probably overpaying for a property, and it's going to end up costing you with vacancy and tenant costs. So don't do that. How do I account for Texas insurance costs? Coastal areas, Houston, Galveston require expensive windstorm and flood insurance. Inland areas like Dallas and Austin face high premiums due to frequent hail and tornadoes. I'm going to take exactly what our insurance agent Beth Bosa Coots told us, who's here in Texas. If you're on the water, you're within the county that's on the water, you're going to pay more. If you're inland, past that aspect, yeah. Look, Austin's going to have cheaper insurance when it comes to that because we don't see as much like Tornado Alley does in Dallas, Fort Worth. Okay. So San Antonio, Austin, great markets do that. You're inland, maybe like Tyler from Houston or outside, like I said, outside of Harris County, you're a county removed from, you're going to be pretty good, but you're going to have costs one way or another. So keep that in mind. Talk to your reps, talk to your insurance agents, and make sure to shop it and make sure you're getting apples to apples as well. Or you never know, you may have to face self-insurance in some cases. But if you're on the water in Texas, that means from Brownsville all the way up to Houston or Beaumont, you're going to pay premium for living on the water. Okay. Number 13 is house hacking legal in Texas. Yes, it's very popular, especially in college towns like College Station, Lubbock, Texas Tech, San Marcos for Southwest, or well, not Southwest, but Texas State University. Basically, you can rent out individual rooms there. If you have like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you're renting out the bedrooms, or you're doing like a fourplex and renting out some stuff like so. Totally legal to house hack in Texas. Just make sure, make sure that you're getting renters insurance, making sure that your insurance agent is aware of what you're doing. All right. What is the typical cap rate in Texas right now? In 2026, most Texas metros see cap rates between 4.5 to 6.5, depending on the asset class and location. Here's the thing: if you're investing in residential property, forget about cap rates. You're going to look at your cash and cash return. That's the most important aspect of it. Okay. Cap rates sound great. You're not going to take 4 single family homes and call it a cap rate. Just that works more for commercial aspect of things. Okay. So yeah, 4.5 to 6.5. Yeah, I would buy at a higher cap rate. And we see enough distressed stuff now. You buy in a high cap rate, you sell in a low cap rate. Okay. Number 15 is an open-ended question, and you have to make the decision. Should I invest in short-term rentals, Airbnbs? Many Texas cities like Dallas and Austin have passed strict ordinances. And new investors must ask, what are the local short-term rental zoning laws? And that's very, very important. Find out what's going on in that zip code. Like here in Austin, there's 3 or 4 different organizations that track down Airbnbs inside the city limits and will penalize you. You don't want that. Some communities, HOAs are outlawing that. Some are going away from short-term rentals to like long-term rentals, like 30 days at a time. So keep that in mind. And also look at the inventory. We've had some friends who've had Airbnbs in other areas of the country get decimated because there's just such a huge amount of inventory that they're no longer seeing the numbers that they used to see. So just be careful of that. We had Lisa Harris earlier on from Georgetown talking about how, and if you track her and follow her, she's having a horrible time with Airbnb in Georgetown. Just a big pain in the ass. They're not being customer service oriented. There's fake listings and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. I don't want, I think with short-term rentals, Airbnbs, you're really creating another bound of work for you. And that's not something I enjoy doing. But if it's local, maybe you want to be your own bed and breakfast, Airbnb, hey, there you go. Go do it. Number 16 gets into the operations and financing side. Questions: how do I screen tenants in Texas? Texas is generally a landlord-friendly area, but you must follow federal fair housing laws. Most investors look for a 600 plus credit score and clean eviction history. It's very important. How do you pull credit? There's a lot of these online tenant screening apps you can use. Yardi, other places like that allow for you to pull credit and go from there. Okay. How long does it take to evict in Texas? Compared to other states, it's fast, usually 30 to 45 days from the initial notice to the writ of possession, stuff like that. Still got to go through small claims eviction court, stuff like that. If you've never done it, get you a property manager. The minute people go more than 5 days late, don't beat around the bush. File that notice and get that ball started. You can always stop that, but a lot of people sometimes will play games with you. And if you're a mom and pop landlord, it's going to drag it out and cost you more money in the long run. So don't do that. There are new tent laws with SB Senate Bill 38. Check it out. We did a previous episode on it, and from what you can do. Um, Number 18, can I use a DSCR loan in Texas? Yes, debt service coverage ratio. Loans are popular for Texas investors, but because they qualify the loan based on the property's rent, not the investor's personal income. A common ratio, we talked maybe about this in the previous episode, is that DSCR loans want to see 1.25% of whatever your cost is. Whatever your PITI cost is, so if that's $1,000 a month, they want to see 1,250 a month in rent. Okay. Now, usually a DSCR is going to require 20% down at a minimum. It may be 6.5, 7% interest rate as well. But you got to bring it at 20% down. Some places will go up to 90, others won't go, only goes back to 70. So shop that around, talk to a DSCR rep when you get a second. Okay. But like I said, it's not usually based on your credit score. It's based truly on the financials of the property. Now, if it's a single family home, as a friend of mine in the mortgage industry would say, you could say whatever you want for rent to qualify for that mortgage. Okay. If market rent is 1,250, but you're saying it's 1,400 or 1,500, okay, great. You can say that. Most of the time, they're going to accept that and go from there. What you don't want to do is run into trouble when it starts vacant. And we are seeing more distressed DSCR loans in Texas, all across the state, where people came in with 10, 20% down in different areas, and they've just not seen the rentals taking place, especially for Airbnb stuff. That's a common mortgage to use for like Airbnbs and long-term rentals. Number 19, what are the HOA homeowners association trapdoors? Okay. This is important. Many Texas suburbs have powerful homeowners associations. If you're an investor, you got to ask, does the HOA allow rentals, and is there a cap on the number of rentals in the neighborhood? So find that out. You know, you're probably going to have to pay $125 or $200 to get a copy of the HOA rules. If you're looking at buying a property, get that, find that out, talk to people in an area. One thing I think is always really good, you can go to the county appraisal district and search the address of the property. If it's in an area, search by that, and then start looking for investors or LLCs that own on that same block, and then reach out to those entities or people to see what they say. If you see something that's been sold recently in an area, reach out to the previous listing agent or the person that bought there and ask them. Pretty easy to do that to save you some time and energy. Last thing you do is want to buy in an area where you can't do something like a short-term rental. My nephew, he bought, he didn't rent, he didn't buy. Well, he's bought a couple that are Airbnbs he's working through, but he did the whole Airbnb arbitrage where he rented like 10 units in an apartment complex, was able to get the landlord to allow him to do short-term rentals. So then he leased those units out for a period of time, made some cash flow. His low rent, charging people a higher rent. That worked for a while till the apartment got sold and the new landlord said, no, you can't do that. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then the last thing, 20, should I buy new construction or value add? Since Texas has massive sprawl, new builds are everywhere. Investors are often weigh the lower maintenance of new builds versus the equity growth side of fixing up an older 1970s ranch. Okay. Here's the thing you got to keep in mind. Builders are giving a lot of special considerations, upgrades, and things like that. What you have to be careful of is a lot of these upgrades and costs that are rolling in, the costs to do that are financing or giving a lower rate. It's being added on. So you might be paying for a $250,000 house that might really only truly appraise for 225. Okay. So keep that in mind. These builders incentives, the low rates that might make good for a while, and maybe less maintenance. Make sure it's a quality build. Make sure that the builder isn't using subcontractors. Look at what's going on in the neighborhood on new builds and stuff like that. Talk to the tenants. Go knock on doors. Hey, just want to ask you, I'm looking to buy in the neighborhood. How's it been? We all know builders, once you've signed that bottom line and moved in, they're less likely to show up to fix that punch list. All right. So keep that in mind. I think buying an older house and fixing it up, you know there's going to be issues. You know it's got some solid bones. Most of the properties you're going to buy in rehab are going to need paint, carpet, new appliances. Um, and that's where you're going to see. I don't think it's smart right now to get into heavy building. Adding a bedroom or bath is not a bad thing, but I would not be doing major rehabs right now in the state of Texas with the way the market is right now. Unless, of course, you're just buying a shithole and it needs a full major rehab and you're comfortable with that. Honestly, if you're a new real estate investor in the state of Texas, just do something simple. Paint carpet, get out. Don't over rehab the property. Don't be replacing your laminate with freaking Italian tile. Okay. Don't be pulling out that, don't be putting that perfect custom Wolf, that 6 burner stove in there. Get you a GE, LG, something easy in there that's going to look good, that's going to operate. But that's one big mistake that we see people make, especially new investors. They over rehab the property and they can't get it to cash flow because they got too much into it. So be smart, reach out to professionals. As always, you can book a phone call with me at talkwithscottcarson.com. If you've got a question or concern, always glad to answer your question and put you in touch with the right people that can help you take your business to that next level and get rock and rolling in 2026. Thanks for listening. Make sure to leave it, subscribe and leave a 5-star review, and make sure to share this show with one of your friends. We love it. We appreciate it. And let's